Hey, I'm Dom, and I'll be narrating you through the first ever National Running PodShow. Before I hand over to Mike, the National Running Show founder, here's what this week looks like. Steve Cram talks to us about supporting up-and-coming athletes. In the kit section, Mizuno chat about their latest release. In tech, ArcX show off their multi-function ring. The race that we're spotlighting this week is the Great North Run, and we welcome on Colin, the race's finishing director. Dragon Den's very own David Hellard is here to tell us about caffeine and the caffeine bullet range. And finally, if you're on the hunt for your next or first ultramarathon, then this week's advice section is for you. Don't forget our sponsors, Runderwear, are giving away £100 worth of vouchers every single episode. Enter for your chance to win through the link in the episode description. Mike, over to you.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever National Running PodShow. So what this is, it's a podcast and you can get it on YouTube and you can also get it in an audio format. And our vision for this, myself and Dom, who works with us here at Raccoon, was actually we didn't want to just create a boring, normal podcast. What we wanted to give you was something that was a bit varied, a bit different, a bit more like a magazine. So hopefully these episodes will be short, funny, with a few different extra bits thrown in. So we'll have inspirational stories, we'll have a kit review, we'll have a tech review, we'll talk to you about nutrition, and there'll be some experts here to give you some advice too. So our big interview in this episode today is Steve Cram, but when we came up with the idea, we realised that actually I'm a terrible person to listen to, so we needed to get some co-hosts on. So I'd like to introduce you to our two co-hosts for the episodes. And the first up, we have Jamie Smalley, who was the founder of Runderwear, and Runderwear very kindly sponsoring the whole series of the pod show. So Jamie, welcome. Thanks for joining the pod.
Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me.
So we're going to get into you in a minute. We're going to do, in each of the first two episodes, we're going to interview the co-hosts so you can learn a little bit more about them. So we'll talk to Jamie in a minute. But before we do that, I'd like to also introduce Elise Downing.
Hey.
So Elise, you will know, is famous for running around the coast of the UK, but we will talk about that a little bit more in the next episode. So before we go into the meat of the podcast, Jamie, let's learn a little bit more about you.
Go on.
So tell us about your running. Do you run?
I certainly do, yeah. I've done 23 marathons now.
23?
23,
And
yeah.
are you the kind of person that knows your average time for your marathons?
Not average over the 23.
Something you should work out.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes afterwards when Jimmy's figured it out.
When I figured it out.
What's your kind of pace? Because you're quick, right? You're a fast runner.
What's my pace?
Yeah, so how fast would you run a marathon?
So my best is 2 hours and 42 minutes.
But
That's too fast, actually.
unacceptable.
Showing off, I think.
Should we? Sorry, Runderwear are no longer sponsoring the pod because Jamie's too much of a show off, so we're going to get rid of him. So
That was a few years ago.
and are you still running at that sort of rate? Or
No. So I think last year did a 250. So
Slacking off,
yeah,
really.
Yeah, getting old now.
Give up,
getting
I
old.
think.
Yeah, just battling with age,
That's amazing.
So how did
Yeah.
you get started with it? Because I imagine you don't go from
Yeah.
0 to that kind of pace overnight.
I actually got a pretty last-minute entry into a marathon the day before, and I hadn't actually run a marathon.
Whoa.
The
Day before?
Yeah. So the day before, this is how I got into it. I mean, I was running.
Yeah.
I wasn't just doing nothing. So I was running 5Ks, 10Ks and halves. And I got given a space in a marathon the day before. And I thought, yeah, I'll do it. And at the time, I think I was staying with a friend. I was sleeping on a couch. It was just like, oh, yeah. There was no pressure. And it was great. It was no pressure. And I just went down there and I enjoyed it. And I was like, and...
How quick did you do it?
3:17.
For you, what?
Yeah, on the first one.
So for anybody listening to this show, right, we're all about inclusivity in running and how it doesn't matter how far off.
As a we, as a brand, by the way.
By the way, 3 hours 17 for someone with no training is ridiculous.
No, it wasn't no training. I was running.
Okay. But that's insane. That's insanely good.
So then it set me, and I wanted to break 3 hours. So that was the thing, and I'd failed a couple of times, and then I managed to do it in Amsterdam.
So you did that next weekend?
It took me a long time to get there. And coming back to a few of the points that we made in the show, I didn't have a coach, so I was just doing it from just my own, how I felt, and there was no real structure, so definitely recommend getting a coach. And the coach actually helped me with the sub 3, but it helped me definitely get down below that 3.
I'd need to actually get on a coach to get to sub 3, so I think that's probably the way I'd go. I mean, so Jamie's our resident overachiever, but in addition to sort of obviously being an awesome runner, you've set up a business based around running, which is Runderwear, who are our sponsor for the season. So talk to us about that. What's that like?
Well, that's part of that marathon journey, really. I suppose it knits together. But I was on a marathon. I was running, I think it was in the 3rd or 4th marathon, and I'd got this chafing in pretty much every long run I'd done. And it was just one of those things that you just deal with. And people said, oh, you know, after you've run a marathon, that shower stings, it's horrible. And I just thought, no, I'm not accepting that. And it gave me the sort of impetus to go and try and fix a problem, which I love doing. I like a big problem and I like to try and fix it. And I set about trying to do it and came up with some seamless underwear, and yeah, it sort of snowballed from there, and it's ended up becoming my life. Yeah, which is bizarre because that's not what I studied at university.
What did you study at uni?
Geography and economics, and more sort of geopolitics. I quite like that.
I guess economics plays into having a business. Maybe.
Yeah. I've always had a keen, sort of joining entrepreneur clubs at uni and things like that. Yeah, it's always been an interest.
Such an overachiever. I mean, the fact that you're interested in geopolitics, which, to be honest, I don't even know what that means, it just says a heck of a lot about you. For this episode, just for the three of us to talk, I wanted to say, given the themes of the podcast themselves, talk to me about one person who inspires you in running. Jamie, go on, what you got?
Who have I got? I am... in different ways, I'm inspired by quite a lot of the age groupers that continually knock out some of those amazing times. One guy in particular, Mike Trees, is an inspiration for me. Amazing times. I don't know if you know him, and he's got pretty good. Yeah. So, and his son's very quick as well. They're a little duo. So Tommy, but Mike Trees.
Mike Trees, check him out.
Yeah.
What you got, Elise?
It's a bit cheesy, but I come from a family of runners. My mum, my dad, my brother, they're all at it. It took me until I was well into my 20s to follow in their footsteps. But I think just knowing that people ran, I have to give them a bit of credit, I think. My dad had kind of always jogged, but I made him do his first marathon dressed as a fairy when he was 50. And then he went on this dogged pursuit of a sub 3. I think the first one we actually met was at Endure 24.
Oh yeah.
Which is a 24-hour race doing 5-mile laps, and I'd entered solo, and so had my mum, and so had my brother, and my mum beat me and my brother. And
that's so cool.
So I think they've got to have a shout out, haven't they?
You're just going to say that your parents are your inspiration.
And they, honestly, even my mum will laugh at how cheesy it is.
That's
I feel
cheesy,
like I can't follow that.
But I like
anything.
that. No, that's really good.
I do quite like it. It's very good. But
we're not a cheesy family. So.
No, but your dad is now a famous influencer.
Yeah.
Because basically, Elise has got really quite a good social media following, and then your dad started posting stuff, and now he gets sent stuff through the post, doesn't he?
He got a free lawnmower.
Yeah, it's so random. Tell that story. How did he get a free lawnmower?
So basically, I, as you might tell, do quite a lot of work with the North Face, and they got in touch and said, I see you run with your dad a lot. Does he want a bit of running kit? And my dad is he never buys himself anything. He loves showing up to a race in his old swimming shorts and beating everyone. But he was really excited about this new running kit. And then I put a video up, and just people loved it. I think the internet was made for this, was one line. So then he jokingly said, I want some sausages next. Then Heck, the sausage company, got in touch and said, go on, Dave, we'll send you some bangers. So then him and my mum, I wasn't at home at this point, make this sausage unboxing video. And
you've got to be really careful if you search for that.
Don't search for that.
You can just hear my mum filming it in the background. She's going, don't be boring, you're taking too long. So I think
how do you make unboxing a sausage? I really can't believe I just said that. But how do you make unboxing a sausage interesting?
Well, with difficulty. And then basically, he jokingly was like, right, I want a lawnmower next. And then Flymo, the lawnmower company, got in touch, and they have sent Dave a lawnmower. And now I've cut him off because I'm like, you can't keep begging for things on the internet.
You missed the trick. Just ask for an Aston Martin.
Well, he's got an arthritic hip, and he wants a free hip replacement now. So if any private surgeons are out there, Dave wants a hip.
Well, there you go. So this is the kind of inspirational content you are going to get on the Running Show Pod Show. So thank you for this. Our next segment that we're going to move into is our key interview. So coming up next, Steve Cram.
Couldn't have said it better myself. No errors or blunders in there at all. Well done, Mike. Smooth as ever. But yes, into the first part of the interview with Steve Cram.
Hello, it's Jamie here from Runderwear, and this week we are joined with Steve Cram on our guest interview as part of the pod show. How are we? You all okay?
I'm very good, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
Given that it's January, great to be here. And actually, I'm heading off to South Africa very early on Monday morning to go and join our athletes out in Potchefstroom. So I'm only going for 8 days, but 8 days of sunshine will be nice.
Yeah, that will be nice. That will be nice. So, ran over Christmas? How was your running?
I'm not running at the minute.
Are you
I've
not?
got a torn
Why?
meniscus.
Ooh.
So my Christmas, part of it, on
Yeah.
December 27th, I went to see the surgeon. And on about 8-9 days ago, I went to have an MRI scan just to confirm. I'm really bad because I diagnose myself before I go and see the people who really know.
Did you know it was meniscus?
Yeah.
You knew?
Yeah,
Had it
I
before?
had one before my left
Right.
knee 7 years ago, which was done riding a bike.
Yeah.
So not really a running injury, and I had a little bit of tidy up surgery. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I've been, since then we've been running a lot. It's great.
Yeah.
This one we're not quite sure. I think because we have organised our
Yeah.
events, and I like mucking in.
Yeah.
And I think I might have done something in the
Picking
end of
up heavy.
September. Because
Yeah.
getting old, twisting and turning. The good news is, when I had the scan, similarly when they found I had the other one, my knees actually, the rest of my knees are really good. There's no arthritis, there's nothing. So, which sometimes the knee surgeons kind of go, oh, your age, maybe you should stop running a bit and your knees are... But when you look at the scans, apart from this little bit of a nick in the meniscus, which is quite painful, if I get this sorted, which I will, then I'll get back to
You're back to it. And what's your aim, personal aim?
What I do these days, so certainly for the last few years, I've dropped into a routine, which is quite important, I think, but I only run every other day.
Okay.
I sometimes do bits of other things in between.
Reason for that?
But because I don't get injured.
Yeah.
And so I find that if I run too much, it's usually calves or something. But I run sort of minimum 5 or 6 miles. Yeah. And then anything up to sort of 12, 13 miles. So
weekly mileage?
Oh, I don't know. I don't add it. No.
Don't add it up anymore.
Goodness me, no.
Yeah.
As I said, I run pretty much every other day. Occasionally, I'll throw another one in.
Yeah.
But that keeps me fit.
Yeah.
As fit enough.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm getting a bit older now. I'm going to have to get this sorted. I might have to revisit that.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. I still love my running. I travel a lot, so it's great to still be able to get out. I'm traveling, following athletics around half the year. When you're going to Doha or Eugene or Rome or Oslo or whatever, it's great to be able to get out the door and go for a run.
Do you get your like sort of certain spots? The run that you like in Doha, the run that you Yeah,
over the years, I was doing a thing recently with somebody about the great places that you've run in. And you kind of go, wow, you just remember some of the great places. But yes, you become a little bit of a creature of habit. I like exploring places running.
Yeah,
still.
Me too. I love that.
I hate hotel gyms. You'll never see me on a treadmill.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happened was more recently in Beijing Winter Olympics. I was commentating do the curling 2022. Yeah. And it was still lockdown there, so we literally were hotel, venue, IBC. Yeah. That's all we were allowed to go to. And I was desperate to run. And it was freezing as well. It was really icy outside. So I had to go in the gym, on the treadmill. I hated it. So the only way I could run was actually at the IBC. So we'd take my kit. We had a lot of curling matches, 3 matches a day, and sometimes but when I had the chance, so I was having to run on about a 400 metre, there was like a gardening area. Laps and laps and laps around there. Yeah. But I got out. I didn't exactly explore Beijing, let's put it that way.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, coming on to that, best place you have run?
Man,
I'll give you 3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah, 3 best places.
Coronado Beach in San Diego, which is if you... I'm not a big beach runner, but it's the hardest, flattest, beautiful long bay.
Noted.
Usually with the Pacific Ocean on your left and San Diego on your right. That's a beautiful place. But I have to say, and I'll go number 2. This only because it's such an iconic place. It's probably not the most beautiful. It's certainly one of them, but for me, back home, Kielder is just... I've got to pick somewhere at home. Kielder Forest is
Yeah.
I go there reasonably often. There's never anyone there.
Yeah.
I can run on the trails.
Yeah.
The water, the scenery is gorgeous, and I love it. But number one probably would be Colorado. I used to go training in Boulder.
Yeah.
And not so much running. They've got a lot of trails in the town.
Yeah.
Well, it's nearly a city now. It's got that big. But when I first started to go there, it's pretty punishing, but used to head up. There's a place called Chautauqua Park.
Okay.
And if you head out at Chautauqua Park up into the Flatirons, what we call the Flatirons, which are the beginning of the Rocky Mountains.
Okay.
And you climb, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But the views, you can pretty much see all the way to Kansas, which is about 1,000 miles away, but maybe not that far, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
And were you there training when you were actually full on training? Yeah.
So I first went there in 1980.
Okay.
Nike sent me there, and it became a bit of a second home.
Yeah. Well, it's a mecca, isn't it? It is a mecca for
It wasn't
endurance
then.
sport. Was it not?
No, not really. It wasn't.
So
then.
you were
There'd
the
been
pioneer?
A little bit. Not me. There was one or two others. There was no track there. There was. As I said, to get on the trails, you had to go up. There was a guy there called Frank Shorter, who was the Olympic marathon champion in 1972. And Frank had opened up a running shop in Boulder.
Yeah.
Boulder's the big university town, and the running boom was really getting going. So, but there weren't too many. But very quickly, other people started to go and train there, and some stayed there. People like Steve Jones, still lives there.
Yeah.
I remember one day bumping into Rob Di Castella, like just randomly. I started to see more and more faces, and then by the mid '80s, everybody was gone.
Everyone was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, Steve Cram training camps. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, we
where it is now, and what's the vision for it.
I'd love to do more of them, but they. So we sort of back to 2 a year. We were 2 a year, then we went to one after post-COVID, so we're back to 2 now. But we're looking to do maybe another one overseas, which we nearly did this year, but it's got a bit busy, so it'll probably be next year. The point of the training camps is to a residential weekend where we get sort of 70 to 80 people, and they can get pick the brains of the people that we've been used to working with. So it doesn't matter what level you are, you can learn something from, Paula Radcliffe or Chris Thompson, or we had Dr. Steve Peters, who's one of the best sports psychologists, probably in the world. I'm able to bring people along, who've got, but also lots of running celebs, people like Vassos or Louise Minchin or Sophie Rayworth, or who probably have their stories. Yeah. Helen Skelton was at Alkielder one a couple of years ago. People who love running, but are in that public eye, but have got a different story to tell, perhaps to
the elite
like
side.
Themselves. Yeah. But very much about doing it at the level that people can take on board. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's about training. But it's also about everything from nutrition to physiotherapy. Psychology, all of the little elements. Yeah. But we do it in a hopefully very fun way. We do sort of a little run on Friday evening when people arrive, a couple of sessions on Saturday, and then a long run on Sunday, and interspersed with all the activities, talks and all the rest of it. What's now become probably the most important part of the weekend, which is the quiz on the Saturday night, which I always conduct, and I structure the quiz as well, which is always good fun. Yeah. So it's what everything you want from running is to give you a social weekend.
It's got a bit of community in there.
Yeah,
it's
but
got some training.
So we have a lot of people keep coming back. Yeah. But again, a lot of new people as well. So we keep it to a limited size. We used to do them a bit bigger. Okay. We found that was getting, so we tried to give people the chance for one-on-ones. Yeah. And once you get over, we found that sort of 70 number about works
that
right.
was sweet spot.
Yeah. So once you get above that, it starts to get difficult to give people that kind of chance. So we have roundtable sessions where they can sit with an individual, get their really personal questions answered.
Fantastic. Sounds brilliant. Yeah. Sounds brilliant. And so Steve Cram's life, how do you plan it out? You've got the training camps, you've got the media work and everything. What else fits in there, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, our events company is obviously still growing. So we have kind of 5 main events, which are mainly May to sort of October, which coincides with normally a pretty busy athletics season. So that's the busiest part of my year, from sort of late April through to early October. Yeah. it's pretty full on.
Full on,
but
and then
fine.
when's your downtime then? So the back end?
November?
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
We normally try and get a little bit of a break in November if we can.
Yeah.
But then you're into already you're planning for the following year. And,
Yeah.
we're always looking to try and get new events off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And or improve the ones we have. COVID was, for the whole events industry was tough.
Yeah.
And we're not right at the small end. We're certainly not one of the big players, but we do city centre events.
Yeah.
And the challenges that we've all had to face since COVID have meant, it's been a bit longer coming out of that than I think we'd all envisaged.
What have been the biggest challenges post-COVID?
I think as an event organiser, cost.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before,
Everyone,
I'm not really
right?
keen on passing that on to people, but a lot of our suppliers, it went through the roof. Anything to do with haulage, but a lot of things around health and safety and what have you, which we're always in there.
Yeah.
We've always prided ourselves on very safe events, but and then things like road closures, and it just seemed as though everything just went buff.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of settling down happening now, which is good. But we've lost quite a few, events and event organisers in the last 3 or 4 years, partly because of that. Because you can't just keep passing it on because who wants to pay 50 quid to run a 10k?
Yeah.
Would be my view. That's
I'd
a lot of money.
say,
And then that's then coincided. So then there was obviously a little bit of reticence from people, I think, to come back to big events.
Yeah.
It wasn't certainly 21, 22.
Yeah.
Certainly 22, where we thought it would really come back. There was a little bit of hesitance, I think. And then going alongside that has been the cost of living, I think, for people.
Yeah. It's a double squeeze, isn't it?
It's a double squeeze. And I think people who maybe were doing 10, 12 events a year, maybe I can afford to do 5 or 6, making those choices around what they do and what they don't do.
Yeah.
So as an organiser, we've had to look hard at that as well. As I said, I'm loath to put prices up.
Yeah.
Really don't want to do that. So we've got to look ways to try and cut our costs if we can, or be more efficient where we can, and still keep growing the event. So thankfully 23 things start to improve, and signs are for this year we're continuing in that direction.
And that is a growth on 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not back yet to 2019 figures.
Yeah.
Actually, probably our Kielder weekend is Worcester, Sunderland, Durham. I'm excited, certainly going in the right direction towards that. But I think another year or two we should be back there.
Don't worry, part 2 of the interview with Steve will be back a bit later on. But now, let's lace up with some running shoe talk.
Hello, this is the kit review. I'm here with Graham from Mizuno to talk about the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome, nice to be here.
And what is so special about this shoe, and when is it coming out?
Well, it's coming out on the 2nd of February, is the launch date, the reveal date.
Yeah.
At the moment, they're on a ship somewhere detouring from the Suez Canal, so they're a little bit later than we would have hoped. So the launch date will be the 2nd of Feb. That's where you'll see all the media and the social and the big reveal. As to what's special about it, well, it remains to be seen, but we think it's a pretty special shoe. So it's our top of the range speed shoe.
Yeah.
In what will be, we don't like to call it the super shoe race, but there are a lot of brands doing very similar things at the top end of speed shoes, and this is our answer to that. And we're hoping it's going to be sort of top of the tree when it comes to quicker times.
Fantastic. And who is launch? Is there a certain launch in a certain marathon with a certain athlete?
It's not going to be launched specifically at a race. It will be seeded to quite a lot of our athletes, and quite a lot of athletes that are not already our athletes that will hopefully become our athletes after they've worn this. But yeah, through the months of February and March, you'll see this popping up at a lot of races. Probably initially over the shorter distances, 5k through to half marathon, and then hopefully through the backers, through the summer, we'll see this appear in a few marathons on some really quick races.
Fabulous. And how long does it take to develop a shoe like this, just out of curiosity?
I guess, we're a Japanese brand with a Japanese lab. We're very technical.
Yeah.
The shoe, the original version of this launched 18 months ago, or was around 18 months ago. So since that shoe came out, the follow-up would have been immediately being worked on. So what was right about that shoe? What can we have made better? So probably the last 18 months to 2 years, a lot of the concepts of this would have already been in motion.
Brilliant. And talk me through why it has this sort of crevice through the sole and the science behind that.
Yeah, that particularly is weight reduction. It's a part of the shoe that you don't particularly need to use. So you'll see a lot of shoes where you're trying to reduce the weight, you'll kind of hollow it out and just take a few grams off here and there. And that's really everything that the speed game is about, is performance and weight reduction, plus all of the other components of the shoe that fit together to make it a really quick shoe.
Fabulous. And what is it retailing at? Do you know?
I don't.
Right.
I should know that. I told you not to get a marketing man. But no, I think it's
right.
I think it's 220.
Okay. Very
so
good.
So in that world of super shoes, pretty decent value. Some of them were upwards of 270, 280.
Fabulous.
So the last one was 200. I think this is 220.
Yeah, and you've had some of your pro athletes already testing it with some pretty good results.
Yeah, we've had we had a prototype that we got hold of in about October.
Yeah.
That was there's a couple of the running community might know Hannah Irwin. Northern Irish record holder for half marathon, 10 mile and 10k, I believe. So she achieved all her road PBs in the prototype of this shoe earlier in 2023. So
fabulous.
Really encouraging signs.
Yeah, very good. Really good for the brand. And where would you say the sweet spot is? 5k to marathon, whereabouts?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of runner. So
yeah.
I think naturally 5k is a quicker distance than marathon.
Yeah.
So I think I think anyone in a 5k can run in this that is used to an aggressive shoe and used to a shoe with kind of carbon plate in it. I think up to the marathon distance, you're looking at really fast runners. Yeah. Elite level runners, probably.
Okay.
And in the men's world, you're probably looking at sub 230. In the women's world, sub 3. That kind of area.
Brilliant.
But yeah, 5k, we would expect anyone to be able to grab a PB in these, really.
For you listeners, and you can't see this, there's a certain angle to the shoe as well. Can you explain that angle and why it's designed in such a way?
Yeah, effectively, it's on an 11% gradient,
okay.
which is incredibly aggressive for a running shoe. I think most speed shoes would be on sort of 5-6%. This is really tilted up to 11%. And if you kind of hold it in its natural position like that, you'll see that effectively it's got a cutaway heel. And the whole point of this is that our Mizuno technology called Smooth Speed Assist, and it's designed to help the runner be more efficient, get onto their forefoot quicker, and obviously you'll watch elite athletes, the faster runners are more fluent and efficient through their gait onto their forefoot, and so that's how come it ends up being designed for those faster runners, really.
Yeah, we all need a bit of help with that. And then in terms of the sort of mere mortals, the sort of slower runners, I guess.
Like me.
Yeah, and me. Where's the range for Mizuno? What do you recommend?
It's a big range. It's probably too big in some ways. So we've got a shoe for everybody, and we always say that our motto at the moment, our brand motto is for every run. So for every type of runner, for every type of run, we've got something. So if you are a bigger runner that wants something with lots of cushioning, or you want something lots of cushioning for a slower run, we've got that shoe. We've got the takedown of this shoe, which is a little less aggressive.
Okay, what's that called?
It's called the Wave Rebellion Flash 2.
Okay, so that might be, from a male perspective, if you are in the 2:30 to 3 hour?
I think up to any time in that one.
Fine.
So I think it's a great option for people that can't quite control a shoe of this aggression.
Fine.
It's not got a carbon plate, it's got a fiberglass plate.
Right.
So it's a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
It's still got a very good foam, a very responsive foam.
Yeah.
Perfect for speed sessions, intervals, and a perfect racer for those that want something that is a little bit more wearable than this.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us, Graham.
Thank
that
you.
was brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So if you want to make a shoe lighter, just take a chunk out the middle. Who knew? Tech's up next, and like Beyonce says, if you like it, then put a ring on it.
Hey, it's Elise here, and I'm with Paul from ArcX for the tech segment of this episode. And we're going to be chatting about smart rings, which I've got to say is a product I've not really used before, so I'm excited to learn a bit more about them. So it'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit about ArcX, how you came into existence.
Okay, it was based on personal experience, actually skiing. And I was skiing with a friend. The joke is that he very selfishly tore his ACL on day 3. Selfish because I ended up skiing by myself. And I started listening to music, but I found that when I wanted to skip a track, adjust the volume, or play and pause, I had to stop, take my glove off, reach inside my jacket, take my phone out, because I couldn't get a big thick glove to my headphones. And I love my gadgets, love my tech, and I couldn't find anything that would let me control music in that sort of simple way. So that was the basis of the idea.
Okay, so I guess smart ring is a sort of tech category. What exactly is a smart ring? What makes it smart?
There are lots of great products on the market that do all sorts of great things. They might track your sleep, track your physical activity. ArcX is more about controlling other devices, so it might be music from your phone, it might be controlling sports cameras, wireless speakers, or any other device that you're wearing on your person.
Oh, so it kind of links up with tech you've got already, rather than it itself being an entity. So what can it do?
So if you think of it very simply as a remote control, so as I said, the idea came from controlling music when you can't really get a finger to a set of headphones, or if you're wearing gloves, or if you're wearing some sort of clothing that restricts your movement. So if you think of it, as I said, as a remote control for music or other devices, in the technology, it will recognize what it's connected to, and it will suggest some default settings. You can change those back to front and upside down inside the app. And that's the hardware. The software we're more excited about. So it's going to be, we've been working on it for about a year now. It's an algorithm, and it will take your playlist, wherever you get that playlist from, so whether it's Apple or Spotify, and it will filter it with a view to improving your physical performance. So, now, that's very subjective. It's got to be the genre of music that you like, but based on certain parameters, for example, your heart rate, the amount of effort you're putting in, it will match the music to those physical circumstances, and it will filter that playlist. And there's a lot of science behind the positive impact that music can have on physical activity. Apparently, the stats say it can improve your physical performance by up to 15%.
That's really interesting. So the way it would work is, say if you're doing an interval session, you're on a hard set, your heart rate goes up, it would sort of know to provide you with a song that kind of matches that. Is that the
Exactly,
basis?
yeah. So the music would be maybe a slightly higher tempo. There's all sorts of variables in there about the amount of lyrics in there, but it's basically the beats per minute and the tempo of the music matched to your heart rate and other physical biometrics. And when you match that right, that's when the magic happens.
Oh, mate, yeah, that's really interesting. It'd be great. I can see you've got some of the products there. It'd be great to have a look. So this is one of the rings, and which finger does it go on?
So if you put it on your index finger, and it's got this flat bottom, so it's designed to be...
so kind of sideways.
So kind of sideways and controlled with your thumb. And this flat bottom will enable you to grip onto something. Obviously, if you're running, you could be holding a water bottle, but in other sports, you could grip onto handlebars or any other piece of sports equipment.
I can see that already being really good with like running poles, because I find that I can control stuff through my watch, whatever, but you need a separate hand, so the fact you do it all with one hand, it's not something I didn't know I needed, but actually seems really useful. And if you had like some good feedback from people who have taken this out into the wild?
We've been blown away by the feedback we've had. Obviously, being a runner, we've had so many people who run long distances and enjoy that music to keep them going. And as you say, when you're wearing gloves, or maybe if you've got a smartwatch and it's underneath a jacket, you might not be able to get to that. So that's where people find the real utility in the ring. But we've had some amazing feedback. But 2,000 customers so far.
Yeah, amazing. Because I feel like music is such a massive part of so many people's running, isn't it? So something that makes that easier sounds like, a great idea. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Paul. It's great to learn a bit more about the product.
Great, thank you for having me.
That segment really did have a nice ring to it. More bad puns later, but now we are back for part 2 of Steve Cram's chat with Jamie.
So in another part, I want to roll it back a little bit and ask you about the preparation before your biggest races. So I'm intrigued. I get nervous on my amateur marathons, as do millions. Coming into an Olympic final, there's that whole morning process. You've given your time. Talk us through what that is, what that felt like. What did that? I know it's a long time ago, but yeah.
No, there's a lot more psychology in top-level sport than people realise, I think. So, you can talk yourself out of things before you even get on the start line. People around you can do that. And I think over the years I learned a lot more about why I was successful than I actually realised at the time. I think some things just come naturally to you, and you have a way, and that's why people who are like that are successful.
Yeah.
You're right, you know, but a lot of it is it's more pre-rehearsed than you think. So the Olympic final is a context which is very different. Obviously, it's unique, but it's not that different to when you run the English schools final when you were 14 or 15 and you were trying to win that.
Yeah.
It's just that the context is completely changed. So when you kind of plug into, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that, I've experienced these things before, being nervous, not sleeping the night before, it's okay, I didn't sleep, it's okay, I've done that, that's happened before, you know. I woke up this morning feeling rubbish, you know, and it's the Olympic final. That's happened before and I've been okay, right? I can't eat my breakfast because I'm so nervous. It's okay. So, you know, you've got to plug into those things in a way which isn't when you experience those things for the first time, there can be a downward spiral you can get hold of you. So it is about mindset. It is about the way you think and how you approach the situation. So for me, I always found that from a young age, I loved race day. You know, I lived for race day. In fact, when I was very young, I hated training. I was like, oh, really? I have to train? But the only reason I trained hard was because I liked race day so much. Yeah. I think it's a bit like an actor going on stage. Yeah. If you think you're really prepared, you know your lines, it's then about the performance. Yeah. Yeah. You're not worrying about, but then I've got to walk over there and I've got to, you know, so for the great sports people, they're not worrying about, am I fit enough? They want to go out and put the performance on that they can on that day. You can't always be 100% best, but so, and relishing that in a way which is a positive nervousness, not a negative one, where, you know, you were saying, so how you think, what you say, do we have negative thoughts? Yes. You know, of course you do. Nobody, and actually, if you're not having those negative thoughts, you're probably going to find a fall somewhere along the line. Nobody goes into things, I'm the best, unless you're, I don't know, Donald Trump or something, but you know, you have to have that internal conversation all the time with yourself, but it's kind of looking at that in order that you have an answer that goes, nope, this is what's going to happen. So you're asking the question of yourself, but you have the right answer.
Certainly seemed like that when I look back on footage of you in those moments coming into those finals, and you think you had that confidence.
Yeah, and you've also, the reason I love the 1500, always have done, is that, you know, you've got 3.5 minutes where an awful lot is going to happen, can happen. With all due respect to sprinters, you know, the gun goes, and they've got some things they've got to execute, but it's all over in a few seconds.
This was my next question. So
and you're in a lane, and yes, there's other things around you, but if you can do that, you know, gun, you know, start, you know, reaction start, up into your transition, top speed, maintain, you know, great. And technical events, some things are similar like that, but and the good people can do that and do that and do that and do that. Yeah. 1500, we could be jogging. Yeah. Right? Imagine saying to a sprinter, actually, just go off the start line really slow and then see you. Or we can go off at a lick, or you can be boxed in a bad position with 600 to go. You can be, but also, so you're analysing yourself. You're looking at your competitors, like what are they doing? I thought he was going to do this. So you have a plan A, plan B, plan C. So part of your preparation is being prepared. Yeah. So when you get to the start line, nothing's going to come at you as a surprise.
We're doing E. Yeah. We're doing C, whatever it might be. Yeah, and execute this. Yeah.
And then good decision making.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change my next question into marathon running.
Yeah.
From that, sprinters don't have that they're on reaction. Yeah. 1500, I couldn't think of anything worse than running 1500, 800 meters. Then going into marathon running, you have the time, it seems to me and the normal person, you have the time to adjust your strategy on the fly. But is that a reality at top level elite marathon running from what you know? How much of that, of what you just said from the 1500 applies to elite marathon running?
Yeah, so it's the same, but just drawn out over a longer period.
Yeah.
And so I coach Mary Ngugi, who's one of the world's top marathon runners, been podium twice in Boston, was 5th in New York just recently, 6th in London. So, and I've always been interested working with Mary, who runs for Kenya, but she's based in the UK quite a bit of the time. But, you know, about the processes that her mind's going through in a race.
Yeah.
You know, so we can be prepared, I can get her fit and healthy and ready to race, conditions, you know, prepped, and hopefully mentally prepped as well. But what goes through her head on race day, as with any marathon runner, is going to change and vary.
Yeah.
Because, so the difference is, sprinter, as you mentioned, it's got, you know, a bit like your energy system. It's one to back. 1500 meter runner, yes, we've got some decisions to make, fast, quick decisions, and I can get boxed and maybe get out of it. I might go one mistake I could make.
So many variables in that race.
A marathon, there are hundreds of, from the weather, the wind, the course is going up, it's going down. Yeah. I've started too quickly, I've started too slowly, I feel rubbish today, I missed my drink station. So you're processing a whole host of other information that sadly though, it's generally, unless you're at the very front of the race as a group, most of even the elite runners, you've probably heard them talk about two halves. The race doesn't get going until we say 30k.
Yeah.
First 30k, stay as quiet as possible. Just lock into whatever plan you had and try not to. And so we'll have a goal of where we're going to be, where you're roughly. Mary's more of a racer, so Boston, New York, we do those. There's no pacemakers. Could be slow, could be quick. A bit more like a track race. So you got to be quite strong mentally, because going back to the idea that if you let thoughts. So what if it starts to feed this kind of negativity, the downward spiral? Yeah. You are going to find it really hard to get out of that. Yeah. So let's say you've gone too quick.
Yeah. I was about to say tips on that for the everyday runner.
So you get 10k and you've gone, I knew I was going to do this and I've gone too quick.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So you've got time to put that right, but you need to make that decision, and that decision needs to be okay. You know, so you don't panic about it, and you go, I've got plenty of time to put this right. I mean, to be honest, if you've gone through 35k too quick, that's just then survival. You know, you might get there or you might not. Yeah. How many elite runners have you seen drop out in the last 3 or 4 miles? Lots. Yeah. But theirs is a high risk strategy. Yeah. They're trying to win London, and they go for it. They throw, it's like poker. They go, I'm all in. All in. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Not holding anything back. Whereas if you're someone who's, you know, you get the finish line. So you can make adjustments all the way down the line on that. If you miss a water station, not ideal, but it's not going to completely ruin your race if you don't let it. You might need to back off a little bit. You start thinking about where am I going to get that water on as quickly as possible. Yeah. So you can make adjustments in the race based on any mistakes you might have done. But the key for me is, actually Chris Thompson was talking about it, and we do this with Mary, is you get back to what I call neutral. Yeah. So so if you've started to get into no, you've got to get yourself back to neutral, which is accepting. I didn't do that right. Okay, not a worry. Yeah. I just need to readjust, and here's the plan now going forward. Right? Yeah. I need to slow down for 5k, 10k, get myself back to feeling okay. I'm comfortable. Get to halfway. The plan was to be nice and relaxed at halfway. I was going to be roughly this time. So you're going to slow down a little bit and you're going to get to halfway where you had initially planned, right? One trick Mary likes to do, apparently, and I know I've heard others do this, and I think I do this sort of thing, is stop. If you start to feel yourself, think of something completely different. The state of Sunderland Football Club, kind of go, I can't believe, we sacked the manager, and whatever it might be, something that lifts you out of the moment.
So not Newcastle.
No. Anything that lifts you out of that moment in the race, you just sometimes need to do that for 3, 4, 5 minutes. Yeah. And you'll find that it allows you to reset a little bit. Yeah. So instead of just constantly analysing information and stuff that could become a bit negative. Yeah. I'm making this sound like a real, psychology kind of thing.
No,
but the marathon is a great, when you've got 2.5 hours, or it could be 5 hours, to be at one with your own thoughts. Yeah. and your own body kind of going, I feel rubbish, I feel okay, I feel all right, I'm going too fast, I'm going too slow. It's a conversation that's going on in your head all the time.
I quite like that, though, of actually reframing it. Think about something different.
Think about something different for a little bit, even if it's having a conversation with the person next to you, going, hi, you know, where are you from? You know, is this your first London? It's something like that, because it takes you out of your situation.
Great tip.
Just for a bit.
Yeah.
And then you can lock back into it when you're ready.
Into your zone.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us on the pod show. Really enjoyed that chat. Thanks so much. And that's it for the main guest interview for this episode.
I think it's safe to say that Jamie won't be trying out the 1500 anytime soon. But now let's stay up north for the first race segment of the series.
Hey, it's Elise here, and today for our race segment I'm chatting to Colin from Great Run, who is the Finnish director of the Great North Run, which I think we can all agree is a bit of an institution in the kind of running calendar. Where did it begin? How?
So I think back in the day, our founder, Sir Brendan Foster, obviously he was an Olympic athlete, and he ran an event in New Zealand called Round the Bays. And he is a big running advocate, and he was just inspired by people running together. And I think one of our phrases is run together, run better. And over the, he wanted to bring that over to the UK, especially to the northeast. He's a very proud man from the north of East England. And in 1981, he kind of took a gamble. Him and some of his running colleagues set up an event, and didn't know whether anyone would come, and never looked back.
So, in 1981, the running landscape was obviously quite different. Today, we've got so many mass participation events. What was it like when the Great North Run started? Probably a bit before your Finnish director career began.
Yeah, it was a little before my time, but not much. But yeah, I think you look back at the old archive footage, and basically people were running in whatever shoes they had, whatever trainers they had, in their football shirts or whatever. And obviously, as the years have gone by, the outfits and the spirit have kind of evolved, but really at the heart of the event is the community and the passion that people have and the enjoyment they get out of running together. And I think that is one thing that hasn't changed, it's only grown.
So obviously these over race weekend, an event like the Great North Run completely takes over the city. What's that like from kind of an organisation experience?
It's amazing. I mean, the buzz starts a few weeks out. There's a big sign goes up on the Tyne Bridge, which is obviously an iconic part of the event, and everyone starts to feel like it must be that time of year when the Great North Run's coming to town. And we have a series of events over the weekend from mini runs down, 4-year-olds upwards, to junior events, 5Ks. But obviously the highlight and the showpiece event is the 60,000 people running on the Sunday, and it is really just a privilege to be part of it. 60,000
people, that is amazing.
It is, yeah, and I think a few years back we had our millionth finisher. We're up to 1.3 million now, and it just that number just moves up so quickly, and there's always demand. We've got the ballot open at the moment, and great numbers, great enthusiasm, and even the people that don't get in through the ballot, there's always the opportunity to come and run for charity. Over the years, I think over £25 million has been raised for charity just through the Great North Run alone.
Yeah. Do you think that? Do you naturally get a mixture of abilities and stuff entering these races, or is that something you have to actively kind of seek out? Because I think being when you go and spectate a race, the most amazing thing is watching from the front to the back of the pack, everyone getting something out of it. Is that something you encourage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we encourage it, but it would happen whether we did or we didn't. The opportunity to run. So Sir Mo Farah finished his career and signed off at the Great North Run last year, and the opportunity to run the same race as an elite athlete, and you're basically doing the same thing at your own pace is unique to road running, really. And everyone's got their story. Everyone's pushing themselves as hard, and the journey for the person at the back, it might be as hard for the person at the front. And really, if we can facilitate that, all the better. Yeah,
I think it's definitely unique to running, isn't it? Because if you're a football player, your five-a-side team on a Saturday isn't going on the same pitch as your kind of Premier League icons. And I think it is amazing, sharing the streets with Mo Farah. I can imagine.
And you start in the same time, and you finish in the same place, and you get the same medal. And it is really a special experience. And what the Great North Run has given birth to a number of events around the UK in iconic cities, iconic locations, and really every one of those cities and every one of those communities has taken ownership of their events, and they make it of their city, and really the passion for the support is as much as the passion of the runners.
So what kind of other locations have you got runs in?
So we have runs in Birmingham, Bristol, the Great South Run in Portsmouth, and we're up as far north as Glasgow as well with the Great Scottish Run.
Oh, really exciting. Well, if people wanted to enter and get involved in the Great North Run and tick that off their running bucket list, how do they enter?
If they go to greatrun.org, they can see the whole range of events, be those the junior minis, and we have 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and hopefully there's one near them.
Okay, amazing. Well, thanks so much, Colin.
Thank you.
You know what? I enjoyed Elise in that segment so much that she's back again for the nutrition advice. Time for a shot of energy with David Hellard.
Hey, it's Elise here, and we're back for a bit more nutrition chat, this time with David from Caffeine Bullet. Thanks for coming, David.
My absolute pleasure. Excited to be here.
So, for anyone who's not familiar with Caffeine Bullet, which probably isn't many people, know you've been on Dragon's Den, tell us a bit about the product and what it is.
So, Caffeine Bullet it's an energy chew. The idea came about because I've always used caffeine whenever I raced, and I used to cut out little Pro Plus tablets to then pop as I went around, because I just wasn't a big fan of kind of caffeine gels. And racing in the Sahara, day 2, running through the dunes, I needed my caffeine, I was falling apart, and it popped in the sand and I lost it. And I genuinely had a bit of a weep that day.
What, the tab of Pro Plus?
Yeah. And that's what I just thought, why isn't there a convenient way to take caffeine? So did some research, and turns out if you chew product, it enables the chemicals to be absorbed in your mouth, under your tongue, sublingual, and down your throat. So it just means it kicks faster. So we've created a product which is, for some people, not perfect because they don't like chews in the mouth. For some people, perfect because it means it responds far faster. So when you're tired in a race, you can you get that second wave within 5 to 10 minutes rather than waiting kind of 15 to 25. And it also means that you can untie your carbohydrates from your caffeine. So,
because they're normally all together in gel, like you get a gel with caffeine.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I don't know about you, but whenever I've raced ultras or marathons, when I really want that kind of caffeine kick, often it's when my stomach's already gone to, I don't know if I can swear, but it's gone to pot. And so the time that you then reach for your caffeine gel is often the time you don't want another gel. But I also did another race where I'd taken my gel, normal gel, and then I started to fade, and I thought, oh no, I need my caffeine, but I only had a caffeine gel and had to wait another 25 minutes to be able to take it because I didn't want to overload my stomach with carbohydrates.
That's really interesting. So I actually had caffeine bullets all the way through my half marathon PB.
Oh, really?
I haven't touched it for 6 years now. Wow. So how does that, like the science of that, like how does that work? Why does it give you that little boost, other than the same as like having, like you said, the chewables are a bit different, just having a coffee, but specifically with caffeine.
I mean, the frustrating thing is that we don't actually fully understand the science of multi-dose caffeine because no one's properly tested it. So nearly all the studies have been single-dose caffeine, and what caffeine does, it acts like a hormone. So one of the things it does is it blocks your the sensors in your brain from attaching to something called adenosine, which is a chemical that makes you sleepy. So it's the same size and it just blocks in like a piece of Lego. And it's when adenosine attaches to your brain, that's what gives you that sleepy feeling. So it makes you alert. It also releases fat cells in the liver that can be used as a fuel. So in longer distances, that preserves your glycogen stored. So it increases endurance, muscular endurance, between kind of 4 to 7%, but also overall endurance between 2 to 4%. And it also reduces the perception of pain and fatigue. So you can, even though your body it doesn't stop your body hurting, but actually you don't notice it quite as much. So you can then push through, not only do you feel more alert, but you can then push through the pain and kind of run faster for longer.
Okay, and how does it work? So I think like a lot of us, I've got a strong coffee addiction.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes I hear about people kind of going off coffee a bit before a race so that they feel that boost more at the time. Like,
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
It is, but actually it's equally important to say that some people don't react to caffeine at all. So 10% of people actually slow down when they take caffeine.
Oh, wow.
40% respond higher than placebo effect, and 50% of people are super responders.
Yeah.
And based on your DNA, you can't change that. If you're unlucky enough to not be able to respond, sadly, just avoid all coffee. When it comes to cutting down on caffeine or not, there are actually some slightly conflicting studies. So I've got my own views on it. You can get caffeine completely out of your system in about 4 days. So I'd always recommend that you completely cut caffeine for 4 days. But if you're a heavy user of caffeine, if you do that, you will actually get withdrawal symptoms. You may get headaches, and it's likely to then upset your rhythm of your sleep. So if you are a massive caffeine user, I'd recommend not cutting out caffeine prior to a race. Some studies have shown for Ironman athletes that some of them didn't cut out caffeine, some did, and actually the ones that didn't cut out still had a beneficial effect from the caffeine. My interpretation of it, although this hasn't been researched probably by anyone, is that the effect of the fat release from the liver still happens even if you don't cut out your caffeine. One thing that does happen though is your brain gets used to the receptors being blocked, and so therefore it creates more receptors, and you therefore need more and more caffeine to get the same effect, which is why people find that when they wake up they're tired. It's partly because they now have more receptors than before, so even if they take the same amount of coffee, the adenosine still attaches to the brain. And so what I would advise, if you want to overcome this, it takes at least 2 weeks. So depending on how serious it is, your race, 4 days, 2 weeks, but some people just love a coffee in the morning. Some people like it to, shift the poos. And so actually it really depends on how big the race is, how seriously you're taking it, and how much your enjoyment of coffee or of caffeine is.
And I know that your original kind of like minty chews have been out for quite a while. Have you got any other products in the pipeline? Did I hear something about some ginger?
Yeah, we've just launched something called Ginger Raws, so caffeine bullets are 100 milligrams, and I guess if you're looking at racing on caffeine, the optimal dose in studies is shown to be between 3 and 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilo of body weight.
Okay.
That's a lot. So I have no idea. I guess 75 kilograms. So you're looking at around 200 milligrams to just hit the bottom of your optimal dose.
So that would be 2 of the original tubes.
Yeah, or 3 Red Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot, and we wouldn't recommend people necessarily do that unless they've trialled it and are really going for an A race. But studies have also shown 1 milligram of caffeine does give a good return. So for most people, that's between 60, 90 milligrams of caffeine. We've created Ginger Raws to be only 33 milligrams of caffeine, which is actually quite a low dose. So if I was racing a 5K, a 10K, I'd have a caffeine bullet. I wouldn't have a ginger raw, just not strong enough. But the idea behind it is ginger's good for settling the stomach, and in ultras, in longer races, your stomach often goes with the blood in your system's being used by your muscles, and so it doesn't have enough chance to clear your stomach. Ginger's been shown to clear your stomach for carbohydrates faster, the lower intestine, which then means you've got less issues. And so we decided to create a product that, for ultra races, for example, you could then have a lower dose of caffeine, which the science hasn't shown, but I believe would have still some of the impact of releasing the fat cells from your liver. But it would give you necessarily that massive dose hit that gives you the adrenaline rush, unless you stacked your caffeine. So the idea is, instead of if you're fearful of caffeine affecting your sleep, you can just have a 33 milligram or 2 or 3 for a little bit of a stacked lift, which should get you through your day, get you through your session without it necessarily impacting your sleep, because the half-life of caffeine is between 4 and 5 hours. So it can take, but actually the range of half-life is between 1.5 hours and 9 hours, depending on your DNA, whether you smoke, whether you're on the pill. So with caffeine, you really should just play around with yourself and just see what works for you, because there's so many variations of how it interacts with your system based on everything else you're doing and medicines you're taking and how much you've built up a tolerance, that there is no perfect advice for people.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, David. I'm happy to hear that I might not have to completely give up my morning cup of coffee to get another half marathon PB 6 years later.
Absolutely not. But I would advise not starting races full of caffeine, because you're more likely to start too fast. If you start too fast, you burn glycogen at a higher percentage rate, which means you're going to reduce your glycogen stores, more likely to hit the wall. But also, it then means when you take caffeine later on, you'll need a far bigger dose to be able to increase the overall effect of it. So actually, you're diminishing the effects of that caffeine later in the race when you're more likely to need it than at the beginning. But we've got 3 marathon training plans, 3 half marathon training plans that have emails that guide you through everything you need to do with training, which explain not just caffeine nutrition, but also overall nutrition. Tapping into Bad Boy Running interviews from people like Rennie McGregor and the 80-20 running guy, Matt Fitzgerald. So if you want to find out more, just messages. We can advise you on best use. But as I say, 10% of people shouldn't be using caffeine at all.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like you've got some amazing people kind of supporting, like some big names you've just thrown out.
That's from the podcast, to be fair, rather than Caffeine Bullet. But yeah, it's I guess I'm fortunate enough to interview a lot of the world's leading experts, so I can tap into their knowledge as well.
Amazing, cool. Thanks so much for coming on and chatting to us about the world of caffeine. I didn't know there was so much to know.
Absolutely, and let's get a coffee tomorrow morning and enjoy it.
Sure, thanks so much, David.
Cheers, buddy.
Now, I might be biased, but I think the host in the upcoming advice section does a fantastic job. No prizes for guessing who. Hi everyone, it's Dom here, and this brings us to the advice section of the first episode, and I'm very happy to be joined by Kate and Dan from the award-winning Harrier Trail Running. You guys won Retailer of the Year at the National Running Show Awards. Firstly, hello, how are you doing, and how does it feel to win that award?
Hi Dom, thank you so much for having us on the podcast. Yeah, we're really made up about it, still buzzing from the weekend. It was great, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to be on the trail running stands. It was really nice to see everything that's going on in the running community at the moment and meet a lot of great people.
We have just brought out a fantastic guide called How to Run an Ultra. Dan has co-written that with Ronnie Staten, and all the things that we're going to be talking about today and loads more is available in this guide from our website.
Amazing. Now, this advice section is for people that want to learn more about different elements of running to support their running. They might be brand new into running. They might have been running for years and years, but want to find out something different. And in this section, we're going to chat all about how to run an ultra marathon. Now, a lot of people listening to this will know what an ultra marathon is, but for those that maybe don't, can you run us through what an ultra marathon is?
Great stuff. Yeah, of course, Dom. So really, an ultra marathon is, essentially anything over 26.2 miles, the standard marathon distance. However, there's a little bit more to it than that, in that the attitude and approach to ultra running tends to be a bit different from road running. Often in a road race, everyone will be very focused on how fast you're doing it, what your time is, whereas an ultra marathon tends to be more of an adventure. It tends to be off-road most of the time, and a lot of it, for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, it's more about a completion and having an experience rather than trying to do it in a certain time.
Okay, anything to add on from there?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I would even say that a lot of the time marathons are a lot harder mentally and physically than just adding a bit of distance on to do an ultra. And I think it's important to note that a lot of people are going for ultras now. You don't have to do an ultra, you still do these long distance challenges and things, but they are definitely gaining popularity, and there are a few things that can make it a lot different from a standard road marathon.
And Dan, you obviously said there an ultra is effectively anything over that marathon distance, but are there any sort of big checkpoints that people have in terms of race distances? Are there any kind of main ones that people do that distance?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people tend to aim for something like a 50k to start with. That's only sort of 5-6 miles over a marathon distance. But the the major sort of milestones tend to be 50k, 50 miles, 100 miles. You can go beyond 100 miles as well. As people will know from things like the Spine race that is 268 miles over 7 days. But we'll come on to it a bit more in a minute. But I'd probably suggest not going for a really long one as your first experience, and maybe building up a bit slower.
Yeah, well, let's go into that, because I would say the first thing to think about when going and running maybe your first ultramarathon or picking the next one is choosing the right race for you. So tell us a bit about how someone might go about doing that.
Well, I guess to start with, something that's really important is to think about why you're wanting to do it, because if you've got a really strong why, that's going to keep you going through the dark winter mornings and nights with your training, and to feel like, is it definitely the right thing that you're wanting to do? Because there are a lot of challenges that you can do for yourself that maybe don't involve doing an ultra, so make sure that it is something that you want to achieve, and that would be a really good starting point.
Dan?
I'd back that up 100%. I was talking to people at the weekend, and my message to them generally was, pick something that really inspires you. Even if at the moment it seems like a sort of pipe dream, just pick something that you're really inspired by, and that will get you a long way there.
When I think about ultramarathons, a lot of them seem to be elevation is a massive thing, an ascent. If I think about a marathon, the distance in terms of your climbing is a lot smaller, obviously. But it seems especially when you go around and look at different ultramarathons and the places that they are, the elevation is a massive part of that, isn't it? It can be.
Yeah, it totally can be, and I think there are things that make with the elevation and with being in the hillier areas of Britain and the world, there are things that make that harder, and there are also things that make that easier. Everybody, when you talk about ultramarathon running, it's an unwritten rule that everybody walks in ultras, right from the fastest to the slowest people in races. So I think the idea of being in the hills is often a bit daunting, but actually it shouldn't be, because you do get to you should expect to be walking up hills, and you should expect to be taking it a bit slower on the steeper sections.
And how might equipment change when you're running an ultramarathon compared to running your halves and your normal marathons?
So in ultramarathon running, there's often a specific kit list that you have to be carrying to enter a race. That will be things like some food, often some water carrying capacity, some waterproofs. It's important to have a good fitting way of carrying all those things. A race vest. You might have to carry a first aid kit and a survival bag in some races as well. So there is a lot more kit involved. You might choose as well. They're often not mandatory, but you might choose to take poles on some races as well. And because they can significantly help you achieve your goal or get through sort of especially the terrain in the hillier areas.
Now, I see ultramarathons like the Barkley and Marathon des Sables and all these really scary, massive ultramarathons. Are they all like this, or are some ultramarathons a bit more accessible?
Well, I was just going to say that actually, Dom, is that location is going to be a big thing. So there are all of these really massively publicised events at the moment. They get a lot of media and marketing attention. But a great thing to do is just find a nice local one. You don't have to go and do a massive one like MDS or, one of these Lake District based ones. If you choose a really nice local 50k for your first ultra, which is what I did the Nomad Ultra as my first, which is around Derby. The routes. You don't have to travel. There's nothing worse than getting in a car with very painful legs after you've finished an ultra. You've got support crew, people that can come and see you at checkpoints and things. And also, a lot of the routes, so it takes away all of that route finding issue and wrecking the routes and things. So when you're choosing your ultra, definitely go for a nice time of year. Don't go for the Arc at the end of January. Which is like horrendous on the Cornish coast. Go for something nice on the shoulders of the season, so it's not too hot, not too cold. Location nearby, and terrain. Just go for something that's will make you feel like you've done a nice challenge, but not that isn't going to be achievable, realistic for yourself. I think you have to be realistic with what you're going to be able to go and not get swept up in all of the marketing and the grandeur of some of these ultras. Go for something that you think you can actually have a chance of doing.
I think that element of planning is so important, what you said there about knowing the route and knowing what you're going to come up against. I think one of the other important elements is thinking about the mental side of things and some of the decisions you're going to have to make during an ultra. So obviously it's over a long period of time potentially. So talk to me about that kind of mental approach to an ultra.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing to say would be, choosing the right one and being inspired to do it gets you a long way in that mental approach, because when it gets tough, you'll have that motivation to really push through, and you'll be very focused on trying to achieve your goal. One other thing I always say to people as well is, you can do a lot of the thinking when you're sitting at home on your sofa. You don't have to be making decisions for the first time when you're out running on the trail and you've been running for 20, 30 miles already, and your legs are tired. You might be a bit hungry, a bit thirsty. It might be getting dark. In those situations, it's very easy to make emotional decisions rather than really well thought through decisions. So you can sit on your sofa and you can think about the scenarios that could come up in a race or a challenge, and you can make decisions on them. They might be as simple as, as soon as it starts raining, I'm going to stop. I'm going to get the rucksack. I'm going to get my waterproof out of my race vest, and I'm going to put my waterproof on. So you've sort of taken that decision away from making it in the actual race itself. It can get more complex than that, and you can have various plans for different situations that might occur in races. But the one thing I would suggest is, everyone you can sit down on the sofa and you just think through all the scenarios that could occur, and then think how you'd react to those scenarios when they do occur.
Okay, so I've planned my ultramarathon. I've picked the right one for me. I've had a look at the location. I've made all the, got my kit ready. I've thought about all the things that might happen. I'm prepared mentally. It's all going to go fine, isn't it? I'm gonna finish the race. It's all going to be sunshine and roses. Is that how it always is?
There's a lot that can happen in an ultra, isn't there? It doesn't matter how well you planned. You could trip up in the first 5k and it all go terribly wrong. So I think so long as you have, like you say, you've got those things. I mean, Dan, is there anything that's particularly gone wrong for you in ultras when you've been doing it out of the blue?
God, I mean, where to start? I mean, if I'm honest, it's the thing I love the most about ultra running is the uncertainty of it.
Yeah.
When you start a 10k road race, you probably know that you're going to finish. You don't know how fast, or you don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but you probably know you're going to finish. When you start a long distance ultra, you have no idea what the next 24 hours or so will hold. I've had loads of stomach issues. My kit's failed. It's the list goes on. And actually being able to react to those situations and come through them is almost one of the most satisfying bits about ultra running. Finishing is obviously satisfying, but getting over the hurdles that it throws at you is part of the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, just want to quickly touch on the idea of a DNF and how to deal with that, because that does happen quite a lot before coming on to kind of race reflection and dealing with that end part of it. But DNFing is obviously some people see as a massive thing and an issue and a failure, but actually, how would you advise people to deal with the fact that actually these races are really hard, and sometimes, like you've said, not everything goes to plan?
Could I do a quick point, Dan, before you get into your techie side? And that would be to choose a race that has got very good cut-off times. People like Pegasus, Threshold have got great cut-off times, and it means you haven't got that extra pressure. You're not forcing yourself to run faster than you feel like you need to, because a lot of DNFs come from rushing, injuries, foot issues. So first of all, pick one that you're going to be able to take your time on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And when it comes to DNFing and choosing when to stop, to pull out of an ultra, because it happens to everyone. I mean, I don't, if you do this for long enough, everyone will have an issue that they can't resolve. It's not, and I think there can be a bit of a stigma attached to it, but there shouldn't be at all. I think often it's the sensible decision to make to stop. However, that doesn't mean to say that you should give up easily. because you've committed to this, and it is going to be hard. One of the things that you can do is you could make what we like to call sort of a rules of failure, and you can say, okay, fine. Well, this is another thing you do on your sofa at home. You can say, well, if I get to a point where I'm risking serious long-term injury, then I'm going to stop. And I know that's a decision I've made straight away. You can also say that if I'm not risking long-term serious injury, but I want to stop, I won't stop until I've got to a checkpoint. I've had some food, I've had some water, I've got warm, and I can actually make that decision in the best physical state that I can. So that, because it's very easy to get quite low in these races when you haven't eaten enough or you're cold and you just think, oh, this is awful. And, you run past someone's house and they're on the sofa in front of a fire and you're like, oh, I just want to be in there, So yeah, I think make sure when you're setting your rules of failure, make sure you include something about getting to a checkpoint first, as long as it's safe, as long as you're not going to cause yourself serious injury. Getting to a checkpoint first, having some food, having some water, and then re-evaluating it.
And just finally, to tie things off, because I think just as important bit as all you've spoken about is actually the bit after the race, because a lot of people do suffer with, it's a massive build-up, they've completed this big thing, it's probably the biggest thing they've ever done, and then there's a drop-off. Now, some people might think, okay, right, I'm going to go straight in next week and run double that distance. So how do you deal with the end of an ultramarathon as well?
You've got to rest so much more than you think. So after my second ultra, I rested for 4 weeks, but then went out and started doing some intervals, and I ended up with an injury that actually I had for years afterwards. And so many people get into it far too quickly. You've totally broken your body down, and by not giving yourself proper rest. And I've had first-hand experience of that, even after 4 weeks.
It's easy to it's also, I totally agree, Kate, and it's easy to assume that the recovery is purely physical. It's purely like muscle recovery, whereas actually all of your sort of hormones systems and all of your stress hormones have been massively impacted by this and this race, and this long distance challenge you put your body through. And it can take a lot of time to get back to a normal sleeping pattern, and it can take a lot of time just to feel like you want to do it again. One thing I would say is, if you think this is something that you want to get into or you need a bit of support with it, having a coach can be really useful here, because having a coach, you can talk to them about it and you can say how you're feeling, and they'll give you some input on how quickly and help you back into that running, getting back into running after a race. To help you on your journey onwards, basically.
Yeah, I think coaches are just as good to stop you overtraining as they are undertraining.
100%.
Well, guys, I feel like I'm ready to run an ultramarathon now. I think the advice you've given has been extremely helpful from before the race, during, to after, and after listening to that, I'm excited for the advice you're going to be giving about running with poles in another episode. So stay tuned, ready for that. Kate and Dan from Harrier Trail Running, thank you so much for signing us off. And that's the end of the advice section.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you guys for sticking with us as long as you have. This is a sample for us. We've never done this before, so please let us know if you like it. Also, if you message us there with your email address, you will be entered into a competition from Runderwear to win a £100 voucher. Is that right, Jim?
A £100 voucher. All you need to do is enter your email and you're in the competition.
Now, let me just stop the host there, because don't worry, you're not the only one thinking, what do you mean, message us there with your email address? Now, this probably isn't the only time in the series I will have to interject and correct Mike when he basically talks rubbish. What he means to say is that you can enter this amazing competition by heading to the description of this video or podcast, where you will see a link to the competition. Follow the instructions, cross your fingers, and good luck. Back to Mike for what's actually a very good bit of hosting for once.
And also, if you do enter the competition and you don't win, there is another prize for you, because Runderwear are awesome. So if you enter the code PODSHOW at checkout at Runderwear, you will get 10% off. So that's all of the salesy stuff done. I think it was a pretty good episode, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, enjoyed it. I loved it. I love hearing the stories of some of the brands and the technical kit people. Great. Yeah.
I like this, and I think the inspiration stuff, I mean, it's good to know that your dad can get us free stuff on the internet if ever we need it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, if you want to do the National Gardening Show, Dave will be headlining it.
We'll call Dave. Okay,
Cool,
brilliant.
Dave.
Awesome. Well, look, guys, thank you for the first episode. Thank you to everybody that's been listening. We will be back again. We're going to release one of these every single week for the next 6 weeks. And next week, we're going to talk to Elise a bit more about her story, and we have some other awesome guests for you.
Before you jump away from us, please follow and leave a rating if you're listening to this as a podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. We'll see you same place, same time next week for the Pod Show Episode 2.